Hi guys, so this is actually the 11th time I've done this type of video, but I've not done one for over a year now, and I would like to get back to doing them more regularly because they are kind of fun. So basically what this is, it's just me reviewing 7 horror films in the space of 10 minutes. They're all films that I caught on streaming for the most part over the past few weeks, the last couple of months sort of thing. Some of these films you will have heard of, some of them you might not have. I'm going to be very, very brief in my summing up of what I think of them, and then I'll move on. You know, I'm hoping to get done in 10 minutes, basically. So let's dive in. I'll take these in the order that I think I saw them over the last couple of months or so. We'll start with this film. The Macpherson Tapes is a really early iteration of the found footage movie. This film is to found footage what Space Invaders was to video games. I mean, it's early. I don't know if it was quite the earliest, but it's one of the first ever made. And you can tell that with the quality of footage that you get throughout this. You know, we are a world away from the quality of high definition mobile phones, you know. So we've got a group of people in a house, and they realise that there's something dodgy going on over yonder. There's like strange lights. There's something going on like half a mile away. So a group of the men go out to investigate, and we watch them walk over this grass in the dead of night. And this is actually probably the best scene in the movie for me because it's just really atmospheric. It's a bit nerve-jangling, wondering what these people are walking into, and then they end up beating a hasty retreat back to the house. And then for the rest of the movie, we're in the house, and I guess the aliens, if that's what they are, they've spotted these guys, so they come to this house, hover above the place, and creepy things are happening all around then, strange noises, people acting really oddly as if they've been possessed, and all kinds of different things. There's probably too much happening in the movie towards the end, you know, that there's not enough gaps between the various incidents. It all gets a little bit too frenetic for me, and some of the atmosphere dissipates as a result, but even so, this is still better than a lot of found footage films that you'll watch nowadays. Definitely worth checking out. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5. So next up we have Cobweb. I saw this at the cinema in late September. It's not an easy film to talk about without giving away too much of the plot. It's one of those where you need to go into it with as little information as possible for maximum viewer effectiveness. So I'm going to be very, very brief with my synopsis. So what we've got here, we've got a little girl who's maybe, I don't know, 10, 11, 12. She's got 2 very strict parents, and she realises that in the middle of the night some strange noises are coming from behind her bedroom wall, and I can't take things any further than that because we don't know for the longest time what the evil is in this. Is it human? Is it supernatural? Is it something else? And the film revels in the fact that you don't know. But to the film's credit, even after things are revealed, the film is still very good after that. You know, the reveal is quite satisfying, I thought anyway, and I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to this, in all honesty, if they can think up a good story. It's very, very stylishly directed. I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5. It's my pick of the video. Next up we have Like Dogs. So at the beginning of this, a woman wakes up in chains. She's in some kind of kennel as part of a larger building, and she doesn't know how she got there. A guy comes in and feeds her some gruel, and then he goes away again. And this goes on for a little bit of time. So we get images of the film Martyrs and of Saw, and the film hints that it could just be like a bunch of students behind this conducting some kind of psychological experiment, or it could be like a big conglomerate. We just don't know. And I was intrigued for a while to find out the answer. And the film does move on from just having a woman in chains. It's not all that. But the second half of the film, it's just not that fun. Like, when the twists come, they're not very good. Whenever there's a little bit of action, it's not very well staged. This film looks and feels very, very cheap. And even though the initial idea is promising, it just doesn't really go anywhere for me. So I'm going to give this one 1.5 out of 5. Unless you're desperate to watch horror films where people are in chains, I would give this one a miss. Next up we have The Belko Experiment, a slightly better known movie. I'd certainly heard of it long before I saw it. It's another film that is based loosely around the idea of a dangerous social experiment. So we've got this pharmaceutical company in this. They're based out of Mexico City, somewhere like that, and they've got this massive office building, and at the start of the story, all the shutters come down around the building, trapping all these people inside. It's a little bit like what happens at the start of Judge Dredd. So all these office people, they've then got to duke it out to the death. So I think there's like 80 of them to begin with, 100. I forget the exact number, but they've got to attack and kill each other until there's only one remaining. So this is a little bit like the Office version of Battle Royale, which sounds awesome on paper, but in reality, there's not enough creativity on display here for this film to compete with Battle Royale. You know, Battle Royale has got like so many memorable moments that are just legendary for me. But in this film, things just kind of plod along, and the film is struggling to come up with ways for people to kill each other. You know, there's a lot of people in this who just get shot, or the little devices in their brains blow up, which is this film's version of the collar around the neck thing. We do find stuff out towards the end. We're not left high and dry in terms of why this is all taking place. The film cleverly sets up future sequels that would sadly never come. I was entertained watching this, don't get me wrong. The runtime whizzed by. I was getting a kick out of it, but it's not as good as Battle Royale. But it is at least better than all those Jennifer Lawrence Hunger Games films. So I'm going to give it a respectable 3 out of 5. Next up we have Pearl, which is the prequel to X. I was never a massive fan of X. I loved the first half. I thought the first half of that film was like watching a Quentin Tarantino horror film, if such a thing was to be made. It was really entertaining, dialogue great. But the second half, i.e. the horror half of the movie, was paper thin. There just wasn't anything to it, really. So I think 2.5 out of 5 was a pretty reasonable score for X. And coming into this film, first of all, I wasn't massively excited to see it, but I caught it the other week on streaming. It's of a similar quality, really. I might just about prefer this film to X. So this one's about this psychotic girl who lives on a farm, but she wants to get away from her controlling mother. She wants to be a dancer on Broadway, you know. But because she's not in a good position to achieve her dreams, she gets really frustrated and she starts offing people. It's kind of fun in places, but it just never really ever fully grabbed me, I guess. It's very stylishly made, right down to the font that they've used for the credits and stuff. And I liked a lot of the singing and dancing that you get at various points. 1 or 2 of the kills are quite entertaining. Not massively keen on the character, though. I'm not sure that Mia Goth was right for this role. Brilliant actress, don't get me wrong. I did like her in Suspiria, and she can certainly act, there's no doubt about that, but there's something about her playing this character, it just feels like a slightly odd fit kind of a thing. And I was conscious about this when I was watching this film at several points. Plus, I think this film might have been more effective if it had come out before X. Like, if you come into this watching X, you sort of know what to expect from this world, even though we're going a long way into the past. This would have been better for me, Pearl, if it had just come along, been its own thing, and it wasn't tied to like another movie we'd already seen. But I don't think that would have massively improved it. But just something, again, that came to me when I was watching it. But I'm going to give this one 2.5 out of 5 as well, just like I did X. So that's not a bad score. That's my average score. But for me, these are average films on the whole. They're nothing to get excited about. There is going to be another film to this little series. Not sure what it's going to be called. I'm not going to the cinema to see it. I might check it out when it comes on streaming. We've arrived at our stinker of the day. There is a very fitting title to this movie. It's called The Poughkeepsie Tapes. The movie is absolute poo, so credit for coming up with a very fitting title. I was really looking forward to watching this because I'm a big fan of found footage films, and I'd heard that this was one of the better ones. In fact, I'm surprised it took me so long to get around to watching this, because it does have a decent reputation, at least from what I've seen and heard. And yeah, I couldn't believe how bad it is. So this film, it's about this serial killer, and at the start of the story, the police find hundreds of tapes that this killer has left in some house or whatever, and the tapes have all got instances where the killer has murdered and tortured someone. Every tape has a different victim, kind of a thing, and there are lots of tapes. Like, this guy has been doing this for years. So the film proceeds in a kind of documentary style. We hear from FBI agents and various police who talk about how the killer's MO has changed so often that it's been hard to catch him. And between these little interview clips, we see some of the tapes for ourselves. They're pretty harrowing. You know, some of these torture scenes are pretty hard to watch. At one point, the killer just kills a kid on like a lawn. Don't really want to watch that personally. So you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, well, let's see where this film goes, even though it is pretty harsh to watch. But, and I'm going into spoiler territory now, so if you don't want to know how this film ends, then go away now. 3, 2, 1. The film goes nowhere. Like, there's no ending. Like, the killer just gets away. So we start off this film watching tapes and hearing interview clips, and it goes on like that. And then the credits roll, like nothing changes throughout the entire movie. And this film needed an ending. Like, not every horror film needs a happy ending. This film needed one. Like, if we'd have finally come across a tape where the victim had turned the tables and really did the killer in a really nasty, vicious way, that could have been really satisfying to watch. And that would have been some kind of ending. But as it is, there's nothing. Like, we begin this at point A, and then we watch people get tortured for an hour and a half, and then we're still at point A. That is this movie. It is absolutely pointless. Half a star, or half a bloody axe, I should say, out of 5. Our final film today is Hill Walkers. This is another one I saw on Amazon Prime. This isn't a bad way for us to end today, because this is an alright sort of film for its budget. It's about a group of walkers in Ireland, and one day they go on this little walk across the moors somewhere, and they end up coming across these unsavoury types who own this farmhouse in the middle of the back of Beyond, and you can probably predict the sort of skirmishes that happen thereafter. I love the build-up in this film. It's really great. The first 30-35 minutes, we get some good characterisation. The foggy moors look really good. There's some good cinematography, some creepy little moments where, you know, you see a guy in the distance with a creepy mask on, and I was really impressed with this in the first half. Second half's all right as well, but when the horror and the action kicks in, second half, it's hit and miss. There's some good bits. There's also some really annoying things that happen. The villains get a little bit too talky in this film for me. They just talk too much. You know, there's way too much. There's far too many moments where they're talking instead of just finishing people off. You know, that kind of thing. This film needed a second opinion. It needed somebody else to come along with a chisel and just chisel around the edges, just make it into an even better film than it already is. But it's definitely a film that's made in the right spirit. Somebody who, you know, appreciates, who knows the right way to make a horror film, just maybe doesn't have the experience or maybe enough money to make something really good. But this is still a watchable film if you want something on a midweek night. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. It's certainly better than some of the other films in this list, and I think this is a good way to finish. So that's all for today. That was 7 films, very, very quickly reviewed. I would like to do more of these types of videos, I think, going forwards. I would like to make this series more of a regular thing. If you've got any film ideas for me to include in these mini review videos, then chuck them into the comments below, and I'll try and include them if I can get hold of them fairly cheaply. And I guess we'll leave it there for today. So until next time, I will bid you goodbye. Just to quickly recap, Cobweb was the highlight of the video, 4 out of 5. Poughkeepsie Tapes was the worst film in the video, half out of 5. Right, until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.